Welcome to another video by Flat Earth Trads. Please subscribe, like and share it.
The following is a series of responses to Robert Sungenis after he responded to my critique of his book, Flat Earth, Flat Wrong. Each section starts with me, who Sungenis names the critic, and after the critic's statement, Sungenis' response will follow. Finally, after Sungenis' response is a response offered back to Sungenis by me. Critic. Robert Sungenis provides a list of 16 fathers of the church that he claims taught Earth is a globe. The problem is the list is provably inaccurate. Robert Sungenis. Not quite. I say that the following about the 16 fathers, quote, "The fathers who taught the Earth is a globe, a sphere, two hemispheres, or a round object, not a disk, some doing so more explicitly than others," unquote. Response to Robert Sungenis. Attempting to prove that Earth is a globe is your book's entire point, and you listed the fathers that you believe prove that point. Beyond that, you missed the real point. Most of the fathers' descriptions using the term globe refer to the entire globe of creation to include heaven, hell, and earth. Even Wikipedia addresses this possibility. And I will read from Wikipedia. Bishop Isidore of Seville, in 560 to 636, taught in his widely read Encyclopedia the Etymologies diverse views such as that Earth resembles a wheel, resembling Anaximander in language, and that the map that he provided. This was widely interpreted as referring to a disc-shaped Earth. An illustration from Isidore de Natura Rerum shows the 5 zones of the Earth as adjacent circles. Some have concluded that he thought the Arctic and Antarctic zones were adjacent to each other. He did not admit the possibility of antipodes, which he took to mean people dwelling on the opposite side of the Earth, considering them legendary and noting that there was no evidence for their existence. In his other work, Etymologies, there are also affirmations that the sphere of the sky has Earth in its center and the sky being equally distant on all sides. Other researchers have argued these points as well. The work remained unsurpassed until the 13th century and was regarded as the summit of all knowledge. A possible non-literary but graphic indication that the people of the Middle Ages believed that Earth, or perhaps the world, was a sphere, is the use of the word orb, globus cruciger, in the regalia of many kingdoms of the Roman Empire. It is attested from the time of the Christian late Emperor Theodosius. Throughout the Middle Ages, Reichsapfel was used in 1191 at the coronation of Emperor Henry VI. However, the word orbis means circle, and there's no record of a globe as a representation of Earth since ancient times in the West, until that of Martin Bayham in 1492. Additionally, it could well be a representation of the entire world or cosmos. Critic. On Sungenis' list of terrestrial globe-believing fathers is Arnobius. We strongly disagree. Arnobius was a globe-earth believer. Wiki gives some insight. Quote, "The work of Arnobius appears to have been written when he was a recent convert, for he does not possess a very extensive knowledge of Scripture. He knows nothing of the Old Testament and only the life of Christ in the New, while he does not quote directly from the Gospels. He was much influenced by Lucretius and had read Plato. His statements concerning Greek and Roman mythology are based respectively on a prototrepticus of Clement of Alexandria and Cornelius Lebeo, who belonged to the preceding generation and attempted to restore Neoplatonism. So without knowledge of unquote, sorry about that. So without knowledge of Scripture, any discussion of the shape of the Earth by Arnobius would not be authoritative." Robert Sungenis. The question at hand is how many of the fathers believed in a spherical Earth, not whether we think this or that father has enough knowledge or experience to have an opinion, and we are the judge of whether his opinion counts. Ad hominem arguments are not valid. The fact remains that Arnobius is not only considered a church father, but he states that Earth is a sphere. Response to Robert Sungenis. The vast majority of the early church fathers believed in the literal interpretation of Scripture and actually explain how Scripture is to be understood. They teach a non-spherical earth that floated on the waters, that sat under the dome of heaven. Also, that earth sat under the waters above the dome, that the earth is an expanse, that the firmament above the earth is hardened like glass or metal, that it is an impassable divider between heaven and earth. Scripture describes the whole of creation as a bundle, heaven and earth. That earth is like a seal with upturned edges. That earth has a foundation, pillars, and is fixed, never to be moved. So Sungenis did not understand what the fathers were talking about, or came to his conclusion because their words weren't clear to him, since he had it in his mind that earth is a globe. Sungenis says that his studies make him an expert in biblical exegesis. Perhaps not on this subject just yet. Back to Arnobius. Arnobius was not familiar with Scripture at the time of his writing, so even if he says earth is a sphere, any Catholic can be mistaken, and maybe he belongs on Sungenis' list of globers. However, it isn't obvious, as Sungenis claims, that Arnobius actually said that earth was a sphere. As Wiki tells us, quote, according to Jerome's chronicle, Arnobius, before his conversion, was a distinguished Numidian rhetorician at Caesarea, unquote. A few sentences later, Wiki also says Lactantius was a pupil of Arnobius, and a single surviving treatise is all that we know about Arnobius. This information becomes a problem for Sungenis because both St. Jerome, who lived after Arnobius, and Lactantius, who was his pupil, argued for the literal interpretation of Scripture to understand the form of the earth. Both Jerome and Lactantius were flat earthers. Kind of hard to believe that Lactantius defied his mentor, Arnobius, who Sungenis assumes was a globe earther based on very weak evidence. We know it is unlikely, since we know that Arnobius was the mentor of Jerome and Lactantius. This kind of extrapolation is common for those who have preconceived ideas about the shape of the earth. Critic. Sungenis lists St. Athanasius as a globe earther, yet that claim is proven quite a stretch. Wikipedia places St. Athanasius with flat earthers, and we can see it's highly questionable that the saint taught earth as a globe. Below is a quote from St. Athanasius, and beyond what is an expert from Wiki. Athanasius, quote, but the earth is not supported upon itself, but is set upon the realm of the waters, while this again is kept in its place, being bound fast at the center of the universe. Against the Heathen, Book 1, Part 1. Robert Sungenis. Unfortunately, our critic cut off Athanasius' quote, where it becomes crucial that he believed the earth was round. Here's the whole quote. Quote, and wells again and rivers will never exist without the earth, but the earth is not supported upon itself, but is set upon the realm of the waters, while this again is kept in its place, being bound fast at the center of the universe. And the sea and the great ocean that flows outside round the whole earth is moved and borne by winds wherever the force of the winds dashes it. Response to Sungenis. Your assessment of a cut-off quote does not serve you, but describes the flat earth using expressions common to the early fathers who explain Scripture. When the fathers' teachings are viewed together, a picture of creation is expressed in terms that reveal a flat earth, and the fathers even say so. Scripture describes the earth as an expanse, that the land mass is under the firmament, is bound to the firmament at the edges, and that the earth stands both in and out of the sea. The fathers explain that the earth below the oceans forms the foundation, or pillars of the earth, and that the sea flows around the edges of the upper land masses that rise up from the sea. It may be Sungenis' impression that the only thing water can flow around is on a sphere, but clearly that is not the case. Critic. Diodorus of Tarsus, a leading figure of the school of Antioch and mentor of John Chrysostom, may have argued for a flat earth. However, Diodorus' opinion on the matter is only known from a later criticism. Robert Sungenis says, so why mention Diodorus? I didn't count him as a father who believed in spherical earth. Response to Robert Sungenis, he just happened to be included as part of the earlier quote I used to answer you. Critic. Chrysostom, one of the four great church fathers of the Eastern Church and Archbishop of Constantinople, explicitly espoused the idea based on Scripture that the earth floats miraculously on the water beneath the firmament. Robert Sungenis. I did not include Chrysostom as one of the 16 church fathers who said he believed in a spherical earth, so why is he included here? Response to Robert Sungenis. Actually, there was a portion that referred to him in my answer to your response. Here's the rest of the quote and why he was mentioned. Athanasius the Great, church father and patriarch of Alexandria, expressed a similar flat earth view in Against the Heathen. Critic. Athanasius the Great was a flat earther. Regarding St. Athanasius' claim that earth is set on the waters under the firmament and not out in space, we see that Sungenis has a problem because this description is not a globe. But that St. Athanasius says the earth is bound fast also shows that he did not teach the earth was a ball hanging out in space. Robert Sungenis. We already saw how this critic cut off part of St. Athanasius' quote where he indicated that the earth is round. Athanasius also said, quote, "For when the sun is under the earth's shadow makes its light visible, while by day the sun hides the moon by the brilliancy of his light." Robert Sungenis goes on to say, what Athanasius describes here can only occur with a spherical earth blocking the sun's light. In the flat earth model, the sun is always over the flat disk and never descends below the flat disk. Response to Robert Sungenis. And we have also seen the cutoff part supported the flat earth. Go back and see. These men definitely do not teach earth as a globe. And sorry, your assessment of Athanasius is quite premature, given he teaches the same as the other fathers, that the earth rests on the waters under the firmament as seen in Against the Heathen. So the quote you provide only seemed to support your position. As to the sun being always over the flat disk, such a notion is false and usually only true of pagan flat earth believers. Critic. Scripture says the earth is with a foundation, bound to the firmament at the edges, firmly fixed, and even quotes God saying, quote, "I have found it, heaven and earth, like a square block of stone. I have bound it like a square block of stone." Sungenis answers, Scripture never says the earth is with a foundation, bound to the firmament at the edges, firmly fixed. Also notice how the critic does not give biblical reference to his biblical quote. That's probably because there is no verse of Scripture that says, quote, "I have bound it, heaven and earth, like a square block of stone," unquote. The following are only times Scripture speaks of a foundation, but none of them say that heaven and earth are bound like a square block of stone. And here, Sungenis lists the pertinent Scriptures, and there's quite a few, so we didn't include them in the audio.
We hope that you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like and share.